Parents should not be allowed to spank their children. While many parents think that spanking is a proper form of punishment, it should be outlawed in the United States due to the effect that it has on children. There are no positive outcomes due to spanking a child. In that particular moment, there's only instant gratification for the parent alone. Why physically torment children who cannot defend themselves? Are they just supposed to endure getting spanked their whole childhood? I certainly disagree with spanking children and offer reasons to assist with my opposition in the matter. Did you know that by the end of 2014, 44 countries in the world had outlawed children getting spanked? Why is the United States still practicing corporal punishment at home and at school? What is corporal punishment, you ask? Wikipedia states that corporal punishment is the use of physical force for the purpose of correction or control of behavior from parent, guardian to child. Normally, the spanking or slapping of a child with a parent's open hand, but occasionally with an implement such as switching, paddling, belting, caning, whipping, using a hand brush or slippers. Corporal punishment is also known as any punishment in which physical force is used intended to cause some degree of pain or discomfort, however light. In the 1950s and 60s, many countries changed their views and attitudes on punishment. A book published by Dr. Spock of Baby and Child Care in 1946 advised parents to start treating their children as individuals rather than focusing on corporal punishment. The Wall Street Journal has reported 31 states that have banned corporal punishment in their schools. Of the 19 states that still allow it, Texas and North Carolina have passed statewide laws allowing parents to put their children on a no-paddle list. School systems are afraid of lawsuits when a teacher hits a child. Despite some opposition to corporal punishment in the United States, the spanking of children is legal in all states. Bans on the corporal punishment of children have been proposed in Massachusetts and California, but have failed to be enforced. When I was in the 4th grade, I lived in Memphis, Tennessee. I can remember a boy in my class who got into some trouble. My teacher pulled all the children out of the class and just allowed the father and the son into the room. In his hand, he held a 2x4 and started beating his child with it. After all these years, I can still remember the screams coming from this poor, defenseless child. How could this be allowed in a school? It was very heart-wrenching and painful to reflect upon years later. Just think how this boy must have felt. Research shows that children whose parents spanked them reported feelings of sadness, distress, anger, antisocial, behavioral and emotional problems, developed negative relationships, and fear. This form of punishment is associated with and used in the authoritarian parenting style. Psychologist Diana Broman defines this type of parenting as parents who have high expectations of their children and have very strict rules that they expect to be followed unconditionally. These parents expect their orders to be obeyed without explanation. They often use punishment rather than discipline, but are not willing to explain their reasoning behind their rules. My father was very strict on us growing up. We always had to agree on everything that he had to say, or else we would get spanked. I remember getting spanked with twitches, leather belts, wooden paddles, hairbrushes, shoes, brooms, and an open hand. I wondered if this was okay to do to a child, but this was all I knew. Race, gender, and social class play a major factor in corporal punishment. Boys are more likely to get spanked more severe than girls are. Middle and lower class parents tend to spank more frequently than do upper class. Black families are more likely to use corporal punishment more than white families. Child abuse is very similar to that of spanking. Physical abuse involves physical aggression directed at a child by an adult. Most nations with child abuse laws consider the deliberate infliction of serious injuries or actions that place the child at obvious risk of serious injury or death to be illegal. Bruises, scratches, burns, broken bones, lacerations, as well as repeated mishaps and rough treatment that could cause physical injury can be physical abuse. Physical abuse can come in many forms, although the distinction between child discipline and abuse is often poorly defined. However, the Human Rights Committee of the United Nations has stated that the prohibition of degrading treatment of punishment extends to corporal punishment of children. How can we stop such abuse on children? Yes, it is abuse. Once you begin hitting your child, when does it stop? Hitting does not improve misbehavior. It continues to make it worse. It's a never-ending cycle. It makes the parent and child angry. Children that grow up in these types of homes are more likely to go to jail and beat their wives. Spanking seems to have the most negative long-term effects when it replaces positive communication with the child. Spanking had less damaging long-term effects if given in a loving home and nurturing environment. Parents need to love their children unconditionally. They need to know that each child is unique and love them, no matter what. If parents started using an authoritative parenting style, meaning children are more likely to become independent, self-reliant, socially accepted, academically successful, and well-behaved, wouldn't you want this for your children? When you look around and notice children getting spanked, how does that make you feel? This needs to stop. As citizens of the United States, we need to make a stand and write to Congress. We need to have a No Child Spanking Act passed like all the other 44 countries in the world that abolishes spanking. Just think, our country wouldn't be as violent and parents would be more loving and warm to their children. Instead of spanking, parents need to spend more quality time with their children one-on-one. Parents need to be clear what they expect, hear their child's point of view, have patience, treat their child with respect, and admit their mistakes. Parents should not be allowed to spank their children. While parents think spanking is a proper form of punishment, it should be outlawed in the United States due to the effect that it has on children. We need to make a stand. Write and call your state legislators in order to get spanking abolished for your state, but also for the country. If we all did this, children would feel special and important. Where do you stand?